Thank you, Meagan, and thank you, Kehr, and thank you, Todd, for being willing to talk to me about your collective MSB journey with organizational agility, looking about and talking about what does this kind of mysterious thing that we talk about look like and feel like at levels that are administratively sort of upstream and higher than the classroom. I'm hopeful, Todd, that you might just start off a little bit because we really started working with you first. And if you could just talk a little bit about over the last year and a half, how have you as a leader tried to create safe spaces for your team to adapt to agile ways of working?
Sure, no problem. I'm Todd Covert. I'm the head of school at the Montessori School of the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts. And we began I began working with Simon and Jeff on agile leadership about a year and a half to 2 years ago. And for me, I've always thought of myself as a systems thinker. It was a no-brainer as a way to start to think about how we could become more efficient in the ways that we do things here at our school. For me, what it's done is, there are a lot of routine things that happen throughout a school year, and there are a lot of new things that we want to try and introduce, and it's probably true for any organization. Sometimes we get so run down by the things that just normally get done that we aren't able or don't have the capacity or bandwidth to bring in anything new or think of any new ways of doing things. And so what this has done for us is really help us to not forget about anything, which is important, because it makes all of our work visible. And I'll show some examples of this in a couple minutes. It helps us to do things that bring value to the school. And that might be the things that we do on a routine yearly basis, but they also might be some new ways of thinking about the things that we already do. We're constantly refining because of this process. Refining what we do, thinking about what we do, and so that we're not doing things because we've always been doing things. We're doing things because they bring value to our students. We're doing things because they bring value to our parents, our community, and us as adults that work in a learning community. And so the way we've structured things in our school, we have a couple of different ways of showing them. I'm going to show you just a broad brush idea of what we have been doing here. So we've created some Kanban boards for kind of just our organization and how we do things. And so we really started from a very strategic perspective, and we just looked at different big, broad ideas. And for us right now, just like a lot of independent schools around the world, we're working on sustainability. So we just have this roadmap for change. That's what we called it. And we just looked at quarters of the year, and these different colors are just different cards, different ideas, these big 30,000, 50,000, 100,000 foot ideas that we want to think about as we move throughout the year. And we have them kind of sectioned off into times of the year, but they are movable. And in case something happens, we can't get to it, or we can get to something early. We go one level down and we take those strategies and we create strategy and tactical roadmap. So we do have strategies on this board, and then we also break it down into tactics. And really, how are we going to tackle and pull a lot of these thoughts around strategies forward? And so we were able to kind of create next target states and monitor those as we start to move forward. We then can get down into more detail. So for instance, we have a leadership board, which is to summertime. I know it looks kind of busy right now, but it's empty compared to the school year. So we as an admin team meet at least once a week and go over the things, and there's routine things that I mentioned earlier, but it also allows us, because we can see things and make things are very visible, we can see if there's any room for anything new that we might have heard about that we want to try and adapt into our school. But it then allows us as administrators in our own roles. So Meagan is the director of education, Kehr is the admissions, we have a business manager, we have advancement director. So as these things present themselves on this admin team board, each of us in our own areas can start pulling things forward and into our own boards. So then we go down, for instance, one more level. I have my own board. And so I'll pull things down that I'm working on specifically that then can track back to the admin team board. And then all the way back up to basically the strategy and the roadmap for change board. We've started to introduce some ideas around risk management as well, because everything that we do has some inherent risks involved with it. So we have a way to start thinking about, some of the moves we might want to make and what are the risks, just to start to make those visible too. And just to let us know, help us with some guidance around those things. And I'll let, in a couple minutes, Meagan and Kehr talk more about what they are doing with their specific areas and their domains. But for me, as a leader, I think one thing that we always want to do is surround ourselves or to make sure that we're not the smartest person in the room. And so what this process and what this way of organizing does is allow us to stay on track with some strategy and with some tactics, but it also provides the other leaders within the school some freedom to kind of pull things forward as they see fit in a way that works for them. And so, that's what it's done for me as a leader. It's a way that I can support both Kehr, Meagan, and everyone else in the school, not by a way of micromanaging, but a way of really supporting what they're doing in a more coaching role rather than a micromanaging role.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Meagan, would you be willing to just talk a little bit about sort of what these 18 months have brought for you in terms of change as you and the rest of the admin team start to work in these different ways?
Yeah. So as the director of education, I'm in a little bit of a challenging position for the past school year because I was pulled into the classroom because we didn't have the staffing that we needed. And what was very apparent to me is having to compartmentalize my thinking a little bit and step back out and put on a director of education hat when we would meet as an administrative team, and having the Kanban board and having all the work visible and being able to see where everyone was working, what the priorities are, being able to also recognize ahead of time what might fall through the cracks, because we could all be aware of how we were working toward something together. I think the other piece that I really value about this process is making sure we're identifying, well, Todd, you said it as the value, but I also think of it as the why. Why are we doing this? Is it still useful to the school and our community? Or is it something we just done and gotten into a habit of doing? And so being able to step back and think about the why and the purpose and the value has been really, really, for me, very valuable, especially when I'm, with the challenges of staffing throughout the year.
Cool. Thanks. And Kehr, from your seat, do you have any reflections that you would want to add about, just not even from the tactical level so much as what has it been like to sort of start working in these different ways for you?
I think there was definitely a learning curve to it, just by kind of moving from just really literally writing everything down, writing down to-do lists and tasks and things, and being able to put it up on a board. Felt a little bit like a learning curve, but it was one that you definitely see and feel the benefit of once you say, oh yeah, I don't have to flip through this notebook to go and find my notes. It's all right here on the board and we can all look at it. I think that so that was a nice kind of evolution of working with it. The other piece I feel that, maintaining that, Todd's been able to maintain like this a weekly meeting, here and there we're missing a meeting, but for the most part, to really maintain that weekly check-in with the Kanban board so that everybody has it, has it in front of them. And we're all kind of aware of what's happening so that really when, a family asks a question, we all have an awareness about things that are happening in the school. So I think that's been really important.
Mhm.
Can I add something that I thought of too? The other piece that I really like, I mean, it's so easy in meetings to get into a reporting, like, oh, here's what I've been working on. And most of your time then gets spent just reporting and no real progress is made or different thinking about what's happening. And so we don't have to do that. It's already there. Todd can, even just check in with us individually and say, having looked at like the education program board and check in with me and about how the progress of different things, if something is looking like it's stuck or I might need support with it. So that's been the other piece that's just, it's freeing in that sense. So we don't have to just waste our time with reports.
Mm. Yeah. Todd, any comment to add to any of those things before I get to another question?
I do, yeah. It may have to do with another question, but one of the best parts this year was when we've been working over the years with a couple different admission software programs, and we always wanted to get pretty detailed on when someone inquires, how they inquire, and move them all the way through the process. And sometimes the admission software can become a little cumbersome. And so it was some point this year, and I remember Kehr came to me and said, I think I need a board for the admissions process. And I was like, and so we ended up building out something that was very detailed and it's very adaptable. So at some point, if Kehr's like, oh, I want to track this now, we can add it to it. And so right from the first inquiry, how that happens, all the way to the time they're signed up, Kehr can track all these different families and know really at a glance where everyone is. And so it just kind of shows how adaptable this thought process is. You can apply it to almost anything.
Yeah, I'll
Cool.
add, I just went and did some brainstorming with one of our adolescent guides that we're getting trained this summer. And I quickly realized I should just use a Kanban. I just ended up using a card, but just being able to capture everything and the way it's structured. Can I share it just to show that? Let me go in there. But it was just realizing, again, sort of going back to what Kehr said about not having to go into a notebook and flip through it. So that's the leadership board. But if I go to AE planning, so I created a card. Can you all see this card? 2023, 2024 school year. And in that, I made little sections of themes that we wanted to think about in terms of like orientation and how we could have a system of production and exchange for like helping adolescents learn about economy and different plans of study and work. And then just a connector of just things we wanted to remember to think about, right? So just a huge array. And from that, probably we'll take each one of those and create a card. And when we're ready, we can move that card into ready and be able to work with it. But it was just so amazing to be able to create something that not only the person I was brainstorming with and I had access to it, but then other people on the team to be able to see it. So it's just so dynamic in that way.
And it's funny too, because it's like, I think for most people, it takes some number of months that's more than 6 to start to like get into the habit of, oh, let me just see if I can do it this way. And then once you start saving time and building shared understanding, then you get this other like tailwind of, oh, dang, we don't now have to go back and rework, or, it just makes it so much easier to move from ideation and energy to action, as opposed to things just kind of like stalling coming out of meetings, as is often the case. I'd be curious to know on a slightly different angle, and those are great illustrations. Thank you for that, by the way. I'm just curious to know if each of you might talk a little bit about how you as a leader have changed over the last 18 months as you've learned these different ways of working and collaborating. So how do you feel like you've changed? And this could be small, doesn't have to be big, it just, and it might be, I haven't changed at all. That's totally fine too. But, as we've practiced these new patterns, has it made any impact?
I think I can jump in first. I think for me, it's this the way of thinking and this way of applying kind of what we do has really it goes hand in hand with shared leadership in a way that other ways of thinking they just can't. And by what I mean by that is that it gives everybody some autonomy in their own domain. And as the head of school, I don't really have to know everything that's going on all the time, because I know other people know what's going on all the time in their own domains, and it's organized in a systematic way. And so it takes some of that worry out of just the day-to-day operations that go on here, and things that hopefully won't be left behind.
I'll jump in and add, in some ways it's related to that, but for me, it's helped me have a better sense of the interconnections. So something like family support, there's so many ways that different, we all have a different angle on supporting families. And so the director of advancement might be more focused on cultivating relationships for involvement in events or future donors, whatever it might be. And my angle on family support is a little more like pedagogical based. Kehr's thinking about admissions, but the things that we do, we're all tied in certain ways. And so just understanding, like not getting siloed and understanding how we're all really supporting each other around what something like family engagement has been really valuable.
I think to Meagan's point, you can definitely feel the impact of everybody else's domains as the advancement, and the head of school and the director of education, and how they're all interwoven and how they all relate and impact one another. So that has been really helpful. Personally, though, I feel sort of kind of more capable in my own domain and more in control of my own domain as far as the admissions process goes, because I feel like I can have a better, bird's eye view of that process, and then have the time to sort of think about more broadly and think about more strategically how to change things and make changes within that process. That also will relate to the family connections piece and the marketing piece and the advancement piece.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So let's maybe build off that a little bit. Let's think about the MSB families that you all serve. And let's think for a minute about some of the experience that they've had over these last 18 months and some of the value that they've been getting. Obviously, in the same way that like they don't necessarily know what's changed in the background, but things are changing that they're experiencing. Like you guys are working in different ways. The tone is changing, the feeling is changing. What are some of the ways that the families are benefiting, and I'm thinking really probably mostly small direct ways from this new way of working? Like how has this improved the family experience? Can you think of an example of just one small way in which a family's experience has changed because of how you're leveraging these new capabilities that you're developing?
I'll add one that came to mind was I feel like over the years we always talk about and we are aware of and we pull together somehow like family support, and I hesitate to use the word like family education because it just but just helping our families learn more about what we do and how Montessori is in the school or is benefiting their child's development. And so, or just being responsive to what we feel like is bubbling up in the amongst our families. And so I feel like in the past, it's been very much, we kind of pull our hair out a little bit and be like, okay, we need to have this thing or do this event. And we've done a series of events, and some of them we've continued to do until COVID shook things up. And I feel like this year we may not have done as many, but it felt like we were just, our process of putting together some parent support, whether it's a workshop or a social sort of gathering, it just felt like more cohesive. And I hope to me anyway, and my sense is that just hearing from some families that they felt that too. And it's hard to measure, but it felt different than it had in the past. Maybe a little bit again about that intentionality of like, how does this fit into what we're really working toward, rather than just like churning through things just to churn through them. And that piece of like, creating a card of identifying why foremost, or the value. Although it's easy to, when we get busy, it's easy to fall out of the habit of that. But I feel like the times that we've really prioritized that, it's been incredibly useful to make sure we're on the right track.
I just want to piggyback on that. And I think from a visual standpoint, I mean, we've, especially coming out of the pandemic when everybody's more comfortable being in person, and we had some more ideas. We always have ideas of what we can do as a parent community and what we can introduce to what we have already been doing. But being able to look on our, administrative team board and be able to just kind of capture all of those ideas and kind of seeing what we could actually pull through. And knowing that we can't do all of them necessarily, and some things might not get done because we identify it's just not the right time, but we have them all captured there. Whereas before, someone may have mentioned something to us and we've been like, yeah, sure. And then boom, it went out the window because we didn't have a place to put it. So we really can then measure what our capacity, what our bandwidth is in order to make this new thing happen. Maybe it's to replace something that we've been doing, or maybe we can add something new. But once it's on there, we can kind of see where that can fit in. And timing may be different, but that allows us to create that value and figure out how we can pull that through and make it happen.
Cool. Kehr, does anything jump out for you?
I think again, going back a lot has to do with just the communication within the school admin, and being able to then, relay that to families and parents as if questions arise. I think that's been really helpful.
Cool. Great. We're running up towards the end of our time box. What I wanted to do is just end with one last question. And it's a question about unexpected outcomes, unexpected results. One of the things that I experience as I work with leaders and with schools is when they start to work in this different way that's a bit more collaborative, that really focuses on making the work visible, creating transparency, and really focuses on value. Meagan, to your point of like really saying, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Doing that sort of refinement to make sure that we're really focusing on the highest value activities. People just get surprised. Sometimes just like weird things happen. So if any of you have some sort of, unexpected outcome, unexpected result from something that you would connect to this sort of more agile way of working, I'd love if you could just share that story briefly.
There's something for me actually, which is that it ties back to that whole needing to step out of the director of education role a little bit and be a classroom in a classroom, is that in stepping back at the end of the school year and being able to go back to my board, which I did not attend to nearly as much as I would have liked to over the year, was very, it felt very like a relief to be able to just like, it's all there for me, right? I can see the things that I still need to be attended to. I can take some of the things from the previous year and copy the card and like, okay, that I want to replicate and make sure we go through that process again. And for me, that was a surprise of how reassuring it was to be able to step back into a role fully and feel like I wasn't trying to pick up the pieces and figure out what was going on again.
Yeah, that feeling of all of your stuff being right where you left it yesterday without all of the load and energy to go and get back up to the speed really is profound. And it's like, I feel like as I age, I can almost feel that at like at a like anatomical level of, oh, I don't have to lift this thing. It's not going to weigh 80 pounds. It's going to weigh 1.5 pounds. And I can get back up to speed faster because my stuff is just visible. But yeah, Todd, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed, and maybe these have always happened, and working in this way allows me to notice them. I also think that working this way makes these things more plentiful. And these are these little micro moments of like new ways of thinking. And so, one of the things this allows us to do is, because everything is so visible, we can often ask ourselves the question of like, what are we not thinking about? And what are some other ways we can be thinking about this? Because we don't have to be thinking about the thing that we're supposed to be doing because it's there. So I think that those kind of questions generate new ways of thinking. And so the moments I'm talking about happen without even needing to ask those questions. And I can think of a couple different times, and not to point Kehr out, the person who doesn't think she's a leader, but like, we might be having a discussion and she might just say, well, what if we don't do it this way, we do it this way? What do you think will happen? It's like, let's think about it. Like, that's, I think it not that she wouldn't do that normally, but I think it allows her the capacity to maybe think about those new ways of thinking, and us to have the time to discuss them. And it's that kind of generative thinking, I think, that is going to move us forward and not keep us stale and stagnant.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, so that is the end of our time box. I want to thank you both for telling these stories from the journey. These sorts of journeys that we educators go on hopefully last a lifetime. And I think all of us have been, challenged by the energetic requirements of COVID. And as those get, more to the rear view mirror, I'm just so excited to see what you guys keep doing with this, because the agility, I feel it there and I see it there. And it's just such an awesome thing to be a part of. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being willing to tell your stories from the road.